I think we're live, sir.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, happy Tuesday. I'll give you all a moment to get on here. A couple orders of business before we get going. My good buddy Mark Hopkins, been on the channel a few times, is with us tonight, and we're going to have a conversation about music school. He went to Berklee, I went to GIT. We're going to talk about, you know, how they differed, how they were similar, why you would go to one over the other, and how things have changed over the years. So that's number one. Number two, just for everybody out there that's been extremely patient, we've gotten through this mountain of copyright nonsense. It's taken about a month, which is why we haven't live streamed in about a month. It was extremely hairy there. That's at one point. I had two strikes from Sony Music Entertainment, and they were threatening a third.
Whoa.
But yeah, but we held firm, and and the time passed, and it expired. So that is excellent. It's been a very stressful month. Third order of business after a long wait. The Grateful Dead Rhythm Section Workshop will be live tomorrow on GuitarGate, and that's been a long thing. And the Rhythm Section Workshop is something that I learned at GIT. That was a staple of their curriculum, and I've never seen anybody really attempt it on the internet before, but we're going to give it the old college try, as it were. So thank you all for being so patient about that. So, Mark, how you doing, man?
I'm great, man. I've missed you. It's been a while.
It has been a while, dude. It really, really has. Well, last time I saw you in person, we were just talking off camera. We were playing guitar in the barn that we don't have anymore.
I know. That was a good time. Actually, I was talking to Sean. Sean's playing with me Thursday. Gambone and Sean are playing in my trio Thursday.
Nice. Where are you
And
playing?
we're playing at Nick's Fish House.
Nice.
And we were talking about that, how much fun that was that day that we got together.
Yeah. Everybody on the channel kind of knows what's up, but for those that aren't paying attention, or that are new, used to have a barn. We played together in there once. I was trying to rent it. Person ended up not renting it to me, so now I'm in the process of building my own barn. Regardless of all that, how's everybody doing out there? Fantasy, good to see you. Fishing, all the mods. Angry Shoebox, Taylor, Dominic, Tom, good to see you, sir. I'm excited to hear that podcast when it comes out. Aaron, Taylor, Chris Morris. All right. Yes, Fantasy, it goes live tomorrow. Finally. All right. So, Mark, let's just jump right into it. It's been a couple minutes here. So you went to Berklee. Now, did you go to Berklee? Like, what? Were we the same year of high school? When did you go to Berklee?
No, I'm an old fart. Well, I Berkeley's my second degree. So I went to
Ah,
Salisbury University for my
that's right.
undergrad. And
That's
then
right.
when I graduated, I was teaching at a private school for a long time, teaching music. And then I applied to Berklee in 2007 because my wife was applying to doctorate programs. And I was like, what the hell am I going to do if we move to Boston besides trying to go to every Red Sox game? So, so I applied to Berklee, and they, gave me a good deal to get in there. And my wife didn't get in. We were like, do you want to go to Boston and have an adventure, or do we want to stay in Baltimore? I'm like, screw it. Let's go to Boston. So it was kind of a whim that I went.
Now that's
Um,
fascinating. So you didn't actually like seek out Berkeley in particular. This was just a secondary thing, but you obviously knew about Berkeley. You obviously knew players that went there.
yeah, I mean, I was enamored with Schofield and all the people and Bill Frisell and all the jazzers that I knew that went there before the John Mayer thing. Because there was a ton of great, Wayne Krantz, like all
Yeah.
my favorite guitar players.
I know he's your guy for
So
sure.
yeah, so when I went there, it was like a playground for me, man. Um, I was able to go and not have to work. I was a student employee, but my wife was pulling the weight because she went to grad school and I was working and she wasn't working before we moved to Boston. And then we just kind of flip flopped.
Yeah.
So I was really able to kind of dive deep and really work on my craft. And I was a songwriting major because that's where my heart
Okay.
is. But but yeah, all the guitar nerdy stuff. I mean, I did the slide guitar labs and all the cool stuff you can do. So
Yeah, mods, if you could, please, I dropped a link to his channel in the description. If you could share that around, that'd be great. Please give Mark a sub. Mark's a hell of a player, especially that open C sharp stuff. It just bitching. Absolutely bitching. So when you went there, what were you mentioned a bunch of names, but like, what were you really into? What were you working on? Like, what did you expect? What did you, you know, how did you land there? Like, put me in the spot of like where you were as a guitar player when you entered and what it was like.
well, to be honest, I felt a little bit out of place
Mm-hmm.
because I grew up since I was in the seventh grade, man. I was listening to Fish and
Mm-hmm.
listening to the Dead and
Yeah.
all that stuff because I have an older brother who was a Deadhead and got me into all that stuff. And I'm a huge Pearl Jam nut, and that's why I started playing guitar. But like when I started hearing more improvisational music, I was really fascinated by it,
Yeah.
and I think that was my school all the way through Salisbury. And I got heavy into Mo, and Chuck Garvey's one of my favorite players. And
Yeah.
um, so when I went to Berklee, I was coming off of playing in a band that was touring the East Coast, who actually is getting back together. My band Tribe of Men is getting
I
back
saw
together,
that.
which is super fun. But we did a ton of touring up and down the East Coast pretty successfully, like selling out the Record Theater for a period of time and whatnot. Um, but when I got there, like there wasn't any other people that were super like jam band folks. I
Right.
mean, Rob Compa from Dopa Pod was there when I was there, and we
Right.
knew each other and
Right.
still keep in touch. But like there wasn't that many people that were like doing the jam band thing. It was all a bunch of jazzers, which was cool because I was like into Krantz, I was into Schofield, and I wanted to learn more about that. But at first, I felt out of place for sure. I don't know what your experience was like because I know you come from a heavier music background in terms of like metal and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I felt out of place just because that was like the really first time when I went to GIT that I really had to learn theory. I had to learn to read. I had to I had to focus on all of my weaknesses like head on. Um, and they were very significant. I didn't grow up having a guitar teacher that taught me any of those things. It was your classic. I'm going there for 10 years, once a week, and every week we learn a new song and or a piece of a song or a lick or whatever he felt like teaching me. There,
Right.
there wasn't any of the other stuff, and so I felt out of place from that standpoint. Musically, though, it was GIT's a funny spot, man. It's Hollywood, so and like Berklee, people are coming from all over the place, um, and you get really extreme examples of eclectic people, um,
Hmm.
like, very much so. And I'm sure it's the same at Berklee, but I mean, like you have stone cold country killers. I mean, you got people coming in full stilettos and makeup every day, like still stuck in
Yeah,
'84.
yeah, man.
I mean, taking tests like that, sunglasses on in the finals.
Uh huh.
Um, you got all the crazy gospel people. You got the super jazzy people. I mean, you got the reggae dudes. You got the black reggae dudes, the white reggae dudes. I mean, it was everything was there really, which was kind of cool. I felt like it was impossible to be out of place musically because everything was pretty represented.
Hmm.
You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
mean, yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, there. What's interesting is a songwriting major. So I was writing stuff at the time that was very much so in the Gavin DeGraw-y kind of vibe. Because
Mm-hmm.
I traversed so many different periods of Mark. Like there was a period of time when I was a huge Beatles and power pop guy. So I was writing like Ben Foldsy piano power pop stuff. I was writing, you know, like I said, like Gavin DeGraw. Like I got that comment all the time at Berklee, and I didn't even really know Gavin DeGraw. But when I looked up Gavin DeGraw, I found out we're the same age. We
Uh
grew up
huh.
listening to the same exact music. So I'm like, well, duh. Like we were kind of on that same path musically, probably, and that's why our influences come out that way. But that was kind of what was going on for me when I was at Berklee. But I'd be in a class, like there was a songwriting class, and my professor was like an Appalachian kind of guy. Like he played traditional bluegrass type stuff. Like I got to play his pre-war Martin. Like usually like in the songwriting classes, like I would be the most hip guitar player.
Right.
Like he'd always be like, Mark, can you play with this singer or whatever? And, you know, and I always get a chart and I'd play while this singer was singing.
Yeah.
So like after class one day, he didn't pull it out there in class. He pulled it out afterwards. Like, I brought this in so you could check it out. It was like a pre-war Martin, but he was like a, you know, killing. He plays fiddle. He plays acoustic guitar beautifully. So I was exposed to so much, and my uncle's a dobro player. So, I mean, I've listened to bluegrass my whole life too, because of him. So, I mean, I pull from everything, but, it is cool to walk down a hallway and walk past a room. In one room, you're hearing this crazy straight ahead stuff. The next room, you're hearing Dream Theater. The next room, you're hearing like this bluegrass quartet. The next room, you're hearing some like blazing like blues solo. Like it's just like, that was so inspiring to be in those hallways for me, because it's everything that I wanted to be surrounded with, you know, at the time.
Yeah. So. And that's the best part of those schools, is the environment. You can't replicate that. So you mentioned your buddy Rob. Here's your buddy Rob.
Oh, hey, dude. What's going on, man? I feel like I just walked into a surprise party.
I'm the one that, well, actually, I guess it's weird because I knew about the party, you know? Like, usually walking in is the person the surprise is happening to, but you're already here. So,
well, it's amazing to see you, bud.
Rob, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? It's nice to finally exchange words with you, like, for real.
I know, dude. I'm so happy that that this came to fruition, that you messaged me, because so Mark already alluded to it. I was going to tee it up, but you went to Berklee at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And so did you find it similar to the way he kind of described it? Like, did you come from that jam world early, and did you guys kind of connect there about that, because Rob, I don't really know much about your background either.
I was already like in deep with jam band world before, like probably by the end of high school, I was totally like obsessed with Fish and Mo, and the Dead never really took as huge as a hold as some other bands, but that was there too. And like, yeah, just that whole scene, I was all about it, and I kind of got made fun of for it in high school. Nobody else liked it, you know.
And where are you from?
I'm from Rochester, New York.
See, I would think there'd be a lot of people up there like that.
There are, but you know, like this is the early 2000s where you don't know anybody who doesn't go to your high school.
Fair enough.
You know?
That's such an interesting point.
It's pretty insular, you know? So I only knew people who went to my high school, which is really small. I think there was like 70 people in my graduating class. So, you know, I was kind of the only one. I remember putting the song Divided Sky on in my senior lounge once, and everybody made me turn it off. They were like,
Oh, so funny.
So anyways, after high school, I couldn't read music. I wanted to go to Berklee or like some kind of like a exclusively music college, but I didn't know how to read music. I didn't even know where middle C was, you know, nothing.
So I was like you. Okay, well, so let's go there then.
Sure.
So why? So
hold on a second. This is fucking great. This is so great.
See, Mark, you're gonna have to go grab another hazy IPA now.
I might have to.
All right. So Mark already kind of went into it a little bit. So Rob, why did you choose Berklee? Like, and what was your goal for doing so?
Well, I don't think Berklee was the exact place I had in mind, like immediately. I think actually like my junior year, I was looking at colleges to go for like literature or creative writing, because the other kind of guitar player, there was like a few guitar players in school, and like sort of one of my friends who played guitar was sort of like, he was like, don't go to music school, man. That's not smart. Don't do it. So I was like, you're right. So my sort of like kind of solution to that for a while was like, well, maybe I could like go to school for creative writing, and then I could like write for a guitar magazine someday, you know? And then when I went to community college after high school and took a bunch of music classes, and that's where I learned how to like read music a little bit and learn scales and stuff. Before that, I could still play. I was gigging and stuff, but it was all feel based, and I wanted to know what I was
Sure.
doing. You don't have to go that direction, but I really wanted to like have a grasp of what I was doing. And then I really took hold because soon after being in community college, I realized I wasn't a very good writer.
Mm,
So, because I was taking like writing classes there, I mean, I was fine, but I knew I didn't love it, and I knew I wasn't like that great at it. But I got the sense I was pretty good at guitar because I was a teenager and I was playing gigs at bars, so I
sure.
knew I was bad at it at least. So I think then I remember I had a Berklee application in my backpack, like sort of just I hadn't had the guts to start filling it out yet. And I remember in an English class in community college, like I got an F on a paper. She handed it to me, or I don't know if it was an F. Maybe it wasn't that dramatic, and I was like, all right, screw this. And in the middle of class, while she's talking, I took out the application and started filling it out in the middle of class.
And that's how it started.
That's how it started. Yeah.
So what's interesting about this to me is that you both really came from like a writing perspective, um, where like it doesn't sound like it was really the get like the internal burn of the guitar, which is what you really, yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously that was there, but I find it so interesting that you were a songwriter and you went to that program, and that Rob, you went that route. I find that interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Mark, what do you have to say about it?
I mean, it's just like I think the it was out of necessity, like what can I do in the music industry to make money as a songwriter? So I'm
Mm,
like, I don't go to Towson University for that. Of course I go to Berkeley. There's only a couple places in the world you could probably go to get that information across to you. And for me, learning about licensing and publishing and all the things that come along with revenue streams as a songwriter, that was paramount for me. Like it really was a big deal for me to kind of understand, oh wow, some people actually do make a pretty damn good living doing
right.
this. And you can wake up every morning and not hate yourself. Well, I guess some days you might hate yourself while you're writing, but
Yeah.
I mean, the guitar was not an afterthought because I've always loved the instrument and I've always kind of pushed myself to learn more. Like I've been even
Sure.
talking to Rob about getting together with him and picking his brain because he's such a great player and his
Hell yeah.
approach and the way he plays. We were actually talking about, he put a post up about Jethro Tull the other day, and I was like, dude, oh my God, like, yes, like Jethro Tull is the shit. Like, so
Definitely.
we have
I
to
didn't
have a whole
know
conversation about that, Rob.
Rotel needed to be taken seriously for whatever reason,
I don't know
Um,
why, dude.
It's
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I grew up
it's
with
the
like my
flute,
dad playing folk records around the house. Jethro Tull records were nowhere to be found.
dude.
So
E-
I sort of lumped them in with like kind of like, I don't know, not to say anything detrimental about other bands, but I lumped them in with maybe like Foghat or like REO Speedwagon or something, and they're not that at all.
And didn't Ian try to recruit Tone Iommi on guitar
I
for
don't know.
Jethro Tull, and he turned
I
it
heard
down?
that.
It's something crazy. Um, anyhow, so what's fascinating to me about this is like this conversation is how I felt really was different at 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 GIT. Um, it sounds like when you guys went to Berkeley, I mean, you were very much trying to figure out how to make a living on the other side, but you're talking about how to be a songwriter and that type of thing. The GIT really, to paint with a broad brush, really attracted people that wanted to be hired guns, studio musicians. Like, it's almost like a tech school, in the sense that you go there, it's not 4 years, it's 10 weeks on, 2 weeks off till you graduate. You're forced to take auditions to get through school. Their claim to fame is that, every, all these different TV shows, everything you see, everybody out there, like you go there to get work. And so that was the reason that I went there, because that appealed to me. Um, And I think that most of the people that I talked to out there and befriended and peers and even the instructors, that was the vibe. It was very much like a working man's tech school kind of vibe.
That makes
Yeah.
sense though, because you're in the epicenter of the entertainment industry. So
Yeah.
like any like film score or any kind of like records or hired gun studio work is all going to be the throb and the pulse is right there. You know, like it makes sense that it would be
And the
more of like turning the wheels that way.
and the curriculum really reflected that. Um, so I'd love to hear what it was like at Berklee, because at GIT, it was extremely performance based. So you had, your basic theory and harmony. I brought some of my old stuff out here. It's because we all got it. You can see how much I struggle with my harmony and theory. I got chicken scratch all over this shit.
Oh yeah, man.
Front and back.
Yeah.
Uh, so yes, you have like your harmony and theory and ear training. You got single string stuff, rhythm stuff, reading, whatever. But the meat and potatoes was your rhythm section workshops and your live playing workshops. And what those were 10 times a week. You got together with a drummer you never played with before, a bass player, a singer, the people that were there for keys, part of the program, the people that were there as far as doing the lighting and the production, that program, the people that were doing the sound, that program, all got together, and each one had a different genre. So in every week, there's a metal one, there's a country one, there's a blues one, there's a funk one, there's a jazz one, there's a gospel one, there's a whatever, um, and you have to do 10 of these, and you don't have to do all 10, but I think you have to do at least 5 a week for 2 years. And so
Do they all have to be different styles? Do they force you
yes,
styles you're not used to?
yes,
Wow.
and you have to do that again for 2 years straight, playing every single time with people you've never played with before, learning everything from just getting a chart and having the CD, which you rented from the library. Um,
So you would still like practice for the ensemble? Like you would be prepared with what songs you were going to play with everybody in that ensemble?
yeah, that's right. So
Okay.
you so you so and it's extremely eclectic. I mean, like one day, I mean, you're doing Slayer, Rain and Blood, and then and it doesn't work like an ensemble. It works like a concert, and it happens in the main concert hall. And so all of your peers, in between all their different classes, they go and sit in the concert hall and watch their peers. And so let's say it's the one LPW, and that one from 2 to 4 on Monday is the funk one or the metal one or whatever it is. And so you sign up for your time slot in that 2 hour window, and they'll play that same song 15 times in a row for 2 hours. So
Wow.
if the song is 5 minutes long, you sign up for a 10-minute slot. You got to walk right on, plug your board in, you got to tune up, and the sound people swap out and they're doing their thing. The production people swap out. The drummer brings his snare, brings his whatever, and it's 3, 2, 1. Lights go off. Go. You play the whole tune, whether you crush it or train wreck. It's over, and then you go, and then the next band's up 5 minutes behind you, and it's like that. 10 different genres a week for 2 years.
That's a lot different than my Berklee experience. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I know. So it's a
That
different.
sounds more intense Berklee to me. What do you think, Mark? Like that sounds
Well, what's
Yeah, I
different about
mean,
it? Well, real quick, what's different about it is that you never really get to be all in on one thing. You
yeah.
you you can at home, but for the most part, they're trying to create people that can enter into a wide variety of environments and thrive and get the gig.
It kind of sounds like they have the mentality of like a Rolling Stone gathers no moss, Like you're
Something like
always
that.
playing, you're never like you never have a comfortable gig. You're always being challenged,
That is the biggest thing I learned from GIT is how to learn stuff fast, how to understand it your way quickly, and be comfortable in chaos.
yeah.
Yeah.
that's a skill a lot of musicians need, and a lot of musicians probably don't embrace, you know, like, because for Rob and I mean, we had labs, and I had ensembles. Like, I was in a funk ensemble. We met once a week for an hour and a half or 2 hours or something like that. And we had a list of tunes that we worked on for, you know, a recital at the end of the semester. So we had like
Right.
a set list, and we would play it at the end of the term, and then you get your grade. So it was definitely different. We didn't have anything like that. I don't even know. Did you ever hear of anything existing like that, Rob? I don't know if I even heard of an opportunity like that, to be
DD
honest.
fire. I was making sure my Wi-Fi was turned on. So can you tell me what you said one more time, Mark?
So I was just talking about the how we didn't have like what Mike had. We just had ensembles, and then we had the recital at the end of the semester kind of thing. But I don't ever remember hearing about something like that. Like, I might have enjoyed doing something like that, even if it was like a pickup basketball game type situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
Which they
think
had that in the calf a little bit. Like, the calf had some of that stuff.
book a calf show. I almost feel like it was actually like a little more like the Wild West. Like there was that, but it was on the students to
Yeah.
have the initiative to do that. So like, you know, if people wanted to play together, I remember. Do you remember you would have to wake up at like 6:30 in the morning and go down to the ensemble rooms and wait in line to book an ensemble room?
Oh my God. Yeah.
For like
Yeah.
hours?
Or, and then
We
you
all
have
had
to
to
be
do
all the way
that.
out in Austin if you got there too late, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
there's like those practice rooms out in Austin. Yeah.
So there was that, and then I think like I wasn't on the songwriting trip like you were. I wish I had been, because that's always been like something I wish would be stronger for me. I was just there to be a guitar. I was almost like what Michael's talking
Did
about.
you
Like,
study with jazz, Rob? What'd you study?
yeah, it was pretty jazz centric, and
Yeah.
I never like kind of expected to become like a bebop madman. I kind of just wanted to be like the best Rob that I could be, and I knew that was like a good way to kind of sharpen the blade, you know.
Sure.
But I was kind of like you. I wanted to like it was almost like I just wanted to be the best guitar player I could be, and like if you need a really good guitar player, give me a call, you know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like trade school. I actually kind of like in high school, my like sort of like dream gig that I could think of would have been in like the SNL band or like Conan O'Brien's band, like something
Yeah.
like that was what I wanted to go to music school for. But I love jam bands. It was my favorite thing in the world, and then I was lucky enough to actually end up in one just by like hanging around with my friends and being bored enough to start one.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
How music school actually did or didn't help us reach our goals that we initially went there for. So Rob, do you think you would have joined with the same band or doing the same type of thing if you didn't go to Berklee? Were they all Berklee people that you formed the band with?
Yeah, there's no way I would have met him if I hadn't gone to Berklee. I mean, I guess I could have if I had moved to Boston and not enrolled. Which like, because this is like a conversation about whether or not music school is necessary, right? So
That's where I'm trying to go. Yeah.
hypothetically, you could do that. You could move to a town where there's a ton of music students, and you could just not enroll and have super amazing work ethic. I mean, there's nothing that you can learn at music school that you can't learn somewhere else. I just think it makes you have the initiative to learn those things. Like it gives you the work ethic to learn them.
Absolutely.
For most people, some people don't need it. I needed it really bad, you know.
For sure.
But I never would have met those other musicians in a million years. I also didn't personally have the social skills or the confidence to go meet the people I was going to be in a band with. And in Rochester, like there's a lot of great musicians where I grew up, and there were a lot of great bands, but none of them needed a guitar player. It's just the way it was. So I had to go, you know?
Yeah. And I don't think there's any substitute. I mean, we can talk about whether it makes financial sense and all that type of stuff, but as far as just on a basic level, there's no substitute, whether you're learning music or anything else, of being in that condensed, pressured environment where every day you're seeing people, work all day, every day to try to get better, and you look up to them and they look up to you, and it's this constant thing, and you're in it for years. I mean, it's such a rapid escalation, that just it doesn't happen in non-pressured, non-focused, and non-inspired environments.
Yeah, I almost think the other students, for better or worse, every single student sets an example for every other student. Yeah. And even more so than the teachers, So like
Absolutely.
I would see people who just had amazing work ethic, and you would see it pay off. They would get in like the best ensemble in school, or there were people who didn't care. I didn't care about ensembles really. I wanted to go out and play actual gigs, you know. And you
Yeah.
would see those too, just by like working hard and getting better. And then I would also see people who like I just couldn't believe how much they were taking that opportunity for granted too. You know, I saw, and which is also an example that's kind of inspirational but reverse engineered. Like I would see people who were squandering this like incredible gift that they got to be there, and it made you kind of want to be like, you know, it made you
Yeah.
want to like get everything you could out of it. Which eventually, like, I wasn't getting anything out of it anymore, so I left. I didn't even graduate, but I started working really hard after that because I had to.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
Mark?
Dude,
yeah.
I would say that is so poignant to say that there's people that don't, they take it for granted and they don't appreciate it. I found my experience there to be so fulfilling because I came from a small town, very small-minded, not a lot of exposure to all these different, first of all, not diverse, at all.
Yeah.
Moving to Boston was the most amazing thing, to be in a diverse community like that.
Yeah.
And to be exposed to all these different cultures and music and whatever, dude, like it really expanded my mind. When I came back here, like I'm getting back together. I was telling Mike, with my old band that toured the East Coast, this old jam band I had called Tribe of Ben, we're getting back together. After 20 years, like the last record we put out was 20 years ago.
That's amazing.
But now when I come back here, when I moved back here, when I started playing with people I used to play with, they were just like, I would be playing and they'd go like that. Because if I would have stayed here, I would have been playing the same old shit.
Yeah.
I would have been listening to the same old shit that wasn't pushing me, wasn't inspiring me to do different things. My drummer, before I left, the best thing he could have ever done for me was expose me to Wayne Krantz. Like he was the only person that ever exposed me to something that hip. And that is what took me on my path. I was like, oh, damn, you can play guitar like this? Wow, this really resonates with me. The way that Ariel Posen's playing resonates with me too. Like
totally.
Wayne, the way that Wayne plays the guitar and the way that he approaches the instrument is fundamentally different than anything I'd ever heard in my life. That
Same
it changed
here.
me, it changed me to the point where I was like, I need to understand this. And if I stay here, I can't understand it. So,
my thing with Wayne Krantz, he's like he's on my Mount Rushmore, for personal hero. And I feel like his cool thing is that his, every guitar player who's that influential, like they have like sort of like a generation or two down from them who kind of like you can tell they sound like them.
Yeah.
But his whole thing is to just sound like yourself. That's the whole point of the entire thing. So it's like almost like you don't even hear Wayne Krantz ripoffs really, because A, it's too hard to do, and B, it's like sort of the people who really get, like the people who really get the music. They're like, I don't want, like, I want to sound like whatever I sound like. He's already doing that. I don't want to cop it. Do you know what I mean?
I feel like the closest, the person that comes closest to it is probably Oz.
Oznoy.
Yeah. He's probably he probably comes the closest to, like, when I first heard him, I was like, okay, he's been listening to Wayne. But then now he's got his own thing. Now he doesn't sound like Wayne. But I think when he first moved to New York, I think he was probably seeing a lot of Wayne shows at the 55. By the way, dude, to the 55 bar. Did you hear about that? It's closing down.
I know.
It's a bummer, man.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I got to go twice. I got there twice. It's awesome. But
oh, hell yeah. But anyway, so I think, in short, my experience with going there, I think it completely opened my world up. It made my world gigantic, where I felt like I was living in a townhome, here. So,
yeah, I definitely agree. One thing music school really did for me is it really humanized all of the doubts that I had and all of the things that I thought were unattainable. I know you guys will relate to this, but when I got thrown into the deep end, you're going in with so much of your own weight that you've shackled yourself with. I struggle with this. I'm never going to be able to do what this person does. I'm never going to be. And when you go and you're in an environment like that, you don't just you get to see all types. You get to see people like I mean I remember being absolutely floored when these people I would see them in our single string and reading classes and just be able to make this thing come on paper just come alive and have the rhythms ebb and flow and just read it, but couldn't improvise in a 1-4-5, you know?
Wow.
And these like people that memorized everything, and then like there was I got to see so many different things, like people who were so good at one thing struggle in something else, and it really made me feel human, like even though I was coming at it from a different spot, that it was okay because they could do things that I couldn't do, and I could do things that they couldn't do, and it was okay, and it was totally different. I think when you do come from a small town, like it sounds like we all did, you're like, one of the I don't know if you guys, grew up playing with a lot of other guitar players. I didn't, so I was like very much in my own little world. And like what you said, Mark, like when I entered this big pool, I realized that we all had these different things that were our super strengths and our super weaknesses on display, and it kind of gave me this different type of confidence that that we were all trying to connect the different dots, but none of us had our shit together.
Yeah.
Truthfully, because I
Hmm.
Yeah.
think we all, as musicians, are so self-doubtful and hypercritical and all that stuff, but very forgiving to each other.
You
You
think?
know? Yeah, I think.
Every day I wake up and be like, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and
That's like,
gosh
God
darn it,
damn it.
people like you. Oh
All right,
God.
all right. So let's keep it moving. As far as what about today? Like what about? I mean, because obviously it was expensive when we went. I didn't know if you guys got scholarships or if your parents paid or if you had to work through school or whatever. But these days, I mean, working through school is virtually impossible for especially something like Berklee. I mean, it's just like what is it, 40K a year?
Well, so we should say that I do
I
work
don't
for
know now.
Berkeley, but
Yeah,
it's
so Mark does work for Berklee.
so I work for Berkeley Online, so we can talk about Berkeley Online. But the
Yeah.
reason I work for Berkeley Online is because I loved Berkeley so much, I wanted to stay part of the fabric of the whole thing. And I've been with Berkeley for 12 years, and it's amazing, and I love my job. But regardless, I think campus now is probably because I have my own loans. My parents didn't help me go to Berkeley,
Right.
but I did get some money. Not a lot, but enough to help to make it possible to go. But I think Berkeley now might be like 33 a year, 35 a year, something like that.
Ooh.
Still not the most expensive college in the country. I mean, places like George Washington and University in DC is like astronomically way more expensive. So it's like,
Oh, sure.
Oh,
So
you
I'm
know,
so I'm looking at MI right now, and I don't remember what it was when I went there. Um, but before aid is 47, and after their after aid, the general aid that they give from scholarships and everything is 35. Now it's only 2 years instead of four, but for so many people, it's become increasingly hard, even if you're a parent and you're paying for your kid, to justify that when you clearly know what's on the other side has changed dramatically as far as what you're going to be able to realistically earn or afford. And I think for most people, that's going to be the big holdup. I mean, I can tell you I've told this story on this channel a bunch, and I would love to hear your perspective, being at Berklee around the same time. But like I said, when I want to bring this out, there's this my music business thing, which is like there's nothing in here usable at all anymore. Um, but like when I first went there, you had to go rent the CDs from the library. They gave you the handwritten charts, and that was it. While I was there, or so, let me think. GIT probably had like maybe 150 players, maybe 200 in every class. And when I went there, the top 50-ish players basically all got work. The bottom 50 basically didn't make it through the first 2 years, um, through the 2 years, and then there was like a middle 50, and the top 50 got work. By the time During my tenure of being there, YouTube, iTunes, and everything came out in real time and completely decimated the whole A&R process. And like, I mean, from my first semester, I think the guys that were graduating were doing like 2 to 3 auditions a week, and it wasn't uncommon in my graduating year to have just one a month, and it was all the school could do to get their kids through. And I think from the time when I went and the time when I graduated, it went from like 50 people getting work to 5.
Damn.
All the A&R money, the school's basically entire channel of work basically evaporated in real time. And I wasn't one of those 5, but I saw the internet. I saw it drop when I was there in real time, um, and basically everybody went home and taught and got in bands and did that whole thing, with the exception of the very, 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 very best of the best, which I wasn't. And I didn't know if you saw that or you thought about it much at Berklee, but for somebody who went there to go to an accelerated program to immediately go to work, intended to have lots of auditions and nailed some auditions, and basically have all the money dry up in real time. That was quite the shock for me and everybody that was there at that time.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is now that Berklee has Berklee Online, which is who I work for. I mean, it's 60% less than what it is to go to campus. So Berklee Online we're doing great, and we have a ton of amazing students that go on to do amazing stuff in the industry. And it's $60,000 for 4 years. So it's way cheaper, and it's the same education, man. Like I can attest to that because I've done Berklee Online classes since I left Berklee. And it's the same stuff. It's just like you get to do it from the comfort of your couch, which is amazing. So like, yeah, granted, you don't have the ensembles and things like that. Right. I wouldn't have met Rob in person or whatever, or done a gig with Rob, but like, it's still an amazing education. So it's interesting how the world is morphing. And I honestly, I think that's the way everything's going to go. Not just music school, but everything's going to start to switch to online because of just think of the overhead that's involved for companies and schools and whatever, dude. Like you see it in the workplace, like all these companies that are going remote too, so it's not just colleges or whatever, but it's really kind of, I can see my daughter, going to a digital like learning environment in college probably by the time she goes there. So I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, I guess what were you gonna say, Rob?
Go, you.
I guess what I was gonna say is that I feel like the for my goals and for what I was expecting, the playbook has been like completely decimated. I think as far as for earning a living, I think as far as the education is concerned, whether you do it in person and online, I mean, if you can afford it and you have the discipline and you jump all in and don't waste it, like, of course it's going to be untouchable. Like, do it. It's going to make you so much better of a player. But as far as GIT being a direct pipeline to work like it was throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and a lot of 2000s in the beginning, there's just no way that's the case anymore. It's just not, and I think as much as, schools like Berklee, hang their hat, and Peabody here in Baltimore, I've had so many conversations with them trying to get them to make a class to teach musicians how to be self-employed. They hang their hat on the education, but they know deep down that there aren't jobs on the other side for the majority of people that can pay that tuition. They either have to get a grant, their parents have to pay it, or they're saddled with huge debt. Like, it's just not true.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear you talk about, like that MI was a portal to careers for people, which is so I mean, that is what college is for people who go to not music college. Like, that's
right.
the point of it. It's
That's right.
job,
Yeah, art
But
is
I
different.
never-
It's not always tied to that. I know.
Yeah, well, I never even thought about that. I just wanted to like play guitar really, really bad and get good at it.
Yeah.
So it was kind of
Mhm.
different. And because I'm kind of like, I don't really plan ahead very well. So I wasn't thinking
But
like
Rob,
what's gonna.
Rob, you're also a monster. They probably gave you a free ride.
No, I not even close. But but I so I never even thought about like, oh, is there a job waiting for me at the end of this? Like I
Right.
think I kind of deep down inside, I mean, I wanted to get really good at music, and the most invaluable things that did that for me was, which is sort of besides the point right now, but the ear training classes, the harmony classes, and like a few private instructors who really just gave me like cold hard material that I had to go learn and come back with,
Yeah.
all those things together combined with like gigging and making all those ear training and harmony information tidbits like contextualized, because I would experience them on a gig and be like, that's that 5, 7, and 6 chord I learned in harmony the other day or whatever.
Right. Right.
So, but I guess like I wanted all that stuff, and then I probably deep down inside I wanted to like meet guys and start a band,
Sure.
I didn't think about making a living. I just wanted to start a band. I didn't think it was possible to even make a living being in a band. I'm still not sure it is,
I think every band in the world the past 2 years has been still trying to figure that out.
Well, I
Everybody
think
was
kind
on
of
their couch.
in this day and age, a reality that musicians, at least instrumentalists, should accept is that they're probably going to have to teach. Like,
Yes.
So
Yeah.
buckle up
And
honestly, learn the information you're going to.
That's like not a new thing. I mean, historically,
No.
Composers, hundreds of years ago, they all had to teach.
Yeah. It's very rare somebody doesn't. Like, I remember, Mark, you were probably at the show. Were you at Berklee when Medeski, Schofield, Martin, and Wood played at the BPC? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. I would have been there, so probably not. I mean, maybe. Do you know what year that was? I didn't get in there. I didn't come until 2008.
You glitched out pretty bad. I'm sorry to.
Oh, I didn't.
Am I glitchy to everybody?
No, you're good. I didn't go there until 2008. Do you know what year it was when they played there?
Oh, okay. I left in 2008, but I was around all the time, so that's how we knew each other.
That's how we knew each other.
Yeah, I think we'd be in different bands that'd be on the same bill and stuff.
Oh yeah, North Fork. Carl Vahayan was the man. Him showing me a bunch of Supertramp licks is one of my favorite parts of being out there.
But I remember Schofield was signing autographs after his show, and somebody asked him if he taught, and he was like, "No, I don't have to teach," But even he teaches at NYU now, so yeah.
That's the thing. I think the hope too, and don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people in the chat are like, you don't need music school, and it's not, like I said, it's not for everybody, for sure. It's definitely not for everyone. True. I totally did it because I wanted to find out as a musician, as a songwriter, if you're gonna be a CPA, you go to school for that. If you're gonna be a doctor, you go to school for that. So I was like, I don't know what the hell I can do as a songwriter, and that's why I did it. And the one thing I will say about Berklee that I found very valuable, that I still to this day appreciate, is that there is no sugarcoating, Mike. They're like, you're up against impossible odds. There's no fluff.
Wow.
There's no fluff at Berklee. They're like, you're a needle in a haystack. And they really push everybody to network and get to know everyone, because some of your friends are going to be famous. Some of your friends aren't. So you need to get to know everyone and be networking, because they may need a tech. They need a guitar tech. They may need a lighting guy. They may need this and that. So it's like the importance of networking and the importance of understanding
Yes.
that like you gotta hustle. If you want to work in this industry, you gotta hustle.
Love it.
And like, so, Dopapod, for instance, they hustled their ass off. Like, you guys been touring in a van, working, and then you get on a tour bus because you've been putting in the hours, you've been putting in the time, you've been putting in the work. And that's how it happens. It's like you can't sit back and rest on your laurels. You know what I mean? Like, this industry's cutthroat, man. We all know this. It's like
Yeah.
dog eat dog kind of thing. It's not an easy thing to be involved in. But if you're empowered with some education on how to navigate those rough waters, it's helpful, So there's certain things that I learned that I don't think I would have picked up had I not done it,
Well, let me ask you this, and I don't know, I alluded to it earlier, and I don't know if Berklee does anything like this. But how much, I don't even want to say can they, um, really give quality instruction, to their students and their graduates about about how to make a living, whether it's using the internet, whether it's teaching, whether all these different things. I mean, how much effort do you think they put into that, or even can they? So the reason I ask that is like I think of like Tomo, and like so I know Tomo, and you know Tomo is teaches at Berklee, but has basically transitioned into his own online thing, and I wonder how much the school encourages that, and how much there is conversation about that, and how people go and make a living doing that. That's my one big gripe with a lot of these music schools is that like I mentioned with Peabody, like I wish they would find a way, and maybe Berklee does, to really talk to these people about how to use the current tools with them to make a living, and not teach the way it was.
I think that Berklee does an amazing job at that, actually. And they
Tell me
actually,
about that.
so, for instance, Tomo, let's take him for example.
Yeah.
The more Tomo has a presence in the thing that he does, the more it drives people to like want to study with him that are already at Berklee, which kind
Yes.
of gets him, that elite status as like one of the main guitar faculty, or whatever. But I think that, when you're talking about, enabling people. Oh, Rob just
I
dropped.
think Rob's having tech issues.
Yeah. I think enabling
back.
people with like what is going on in the world today with YouTube and with, the algorithm, as it were, people are getting noticed now through places like YouTube. So why not embrace that? It's not like it used to be where you get in, you tour grassroots and you get famous, you sell a bunch of CDs out of the back of a car, and some A&R rep sees you in the bitter end in New York, and they're like,
Sure.
oh, you guys are the truth. You know what I mean? That just doesn't happen anymore. And things
No.
don't happen like the Seattle music scene anymore. Like that whole thing that happened there, to this day, it's still mind-boggling to me how quickly, Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all those bands blew up so fast, without the help of the internet. Like, how did that happen? It was the power of radio and everything too, right? But like,
Right.
I think in this case, I know for a fact that the curriculum is adjusting to it and like trying to like educate
good to hear.
people about it. And I can say that for a fact because the graduate program online in songwriting for Berklee, there's classes about it, about how do we navigate this? How do we embrace it? How do we find a revenue stream somewhere from this so you can put food on your table and a roof over your head, kind of thing.
Sure.
So it's very practical, and it never ever like jazz snobs it away, that's not how it is at Berklee. A lot of people think it's like jazz snobby world, and it's not, dude. Like there's, like I said, there's dream theater labs and like dream
Right.
theater ensembles and things.
Right.
So it's like, it's not just that stuff. And, we've been doing this since 1950. So this is how it's done. That's not at all how it is. And the new president of Berklee, she's awesome. So she's really kind of making waves and trying to help with that stuff too.
Dude, that's great. That's great to hear. I wondered I truly wondered how much these schools are diving into all that. I mean, I had no idea.
Yeah,
I
man.
had something I wanted to say. Mark, you were talking about how now at Berklee they're like, we're not going to lie to you. It's impossible odds, and that like some of your friends are going to be famous and some of them aren't, and you never know who. And I kind of think, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, one thing that they don't talk about in music schools that I wish they would is like sort of when you're in the professional music world, coping with the reality of success and that it's not what you thought it was going to be and that you have to
Yeah.
define it for yourself. They don't have it. They're not going to teach a class on that. It's not their job. It's something you find in the real world. So,
Right.
like I think a lot of us I think it's just something that young musicians need to be ready for and need to just stick it out and be patient and wait for the time when they're gonna kind of rationalize this in their heads as they get older.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
when you're 20, maybe you have dreams that you're gonna join a band and you're gonna play Madison Square Garden or something, right? And then by the time you're 35, maybe you're selling out the Paradise every time you come to Boston. That's not Madison Square Garden. It's what, an 800-person room? That's still pretty successful and cool,
Yes.
Hell yeah, dude.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that I think there's this weird period of time where your definition of success is still what your 20-year-old self thought it would be. And what the hell does your 20-year-old self know? What, like, 20-year-old kid
Yeah.
doesn't know what success actually feels like,
That's such a great point.
No.
So
I mean,
so that's one thing that I do feel like you will never learn in a music school until you've actually been out there. Like both of you guys, when I look at you, that's so successful to me. Like what you've created, like as far as like your teaching and the way you educate and everything, like that to me is mind blowing. Like that to me is success. Like success is a really malleable thing, you know?
yeah, dude.
Um,
I mean, for me, I mean, it's a bizarre turn of events. Like I just said that, that basically the internet ruined my plans when I was 20, or whatever the hell it was, and then all these years later, I decided to go all in on it and stop looking for, more gigs and this, that, and the other. And it presented a new thing that I could never have imagined, in my 20-year-old brain and heart and all that. And it reminds me of something that they did say when I first, it's like my orientation at GIT, and it's very similar to what you were talking about at Berklee, where they made everybody in the audience stand up and look around and look at each other, and they said, like, you are the young people now, and there's the people that are my age, which are kind of in between, and then there's the old people, which are in control of everything. If you never ever quit, you'll be the middle-aged people, and the very small percentage of you that truly never quit no matter what will be the old people in this industry. And different things are going to work at different times for different reasons, but get to know everybody and just know that this is how it works.
Yeah.
And that was something I just, like, I really, really, really took to heart. And to your point, I could never have imagined feeling content with who I was as a musician and as a teacher 20 years ago, thinking I'd be sitting in front of a computer every day. I mean, it'd be absolutely foreign concept.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it only makes sense looking back,
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting too is, like, since I was a teacher in a middle school, I was a music teacher in a middle and high school and elementary. I taught K through 12 really. Before I moved to Boston, I hated school growing up. Hated, like, loathed school. I didn't want to go. I stuck my thermometer against the light bulb so many times so I didn't have to go. Like, I just did not want to be there. And I was a poor student. I didn't do well. And then when I got to Salisbury University, and I was like trying to do like economics and business crap, because my dad and my brother both are stockbrokers. And I was like, well, I could walk right into a good money making career, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, what? No, what? No, I'm not doing that. I don't care if I have to, like, like hustle my ass off to make 40 grand a year. I'd rather do that. If I can put food on the table and pay the rent, that's success to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how I felt. And I think, like I said, you didn't hear this, Rob, but the only reason I ended up at Berklee is because my wife applied to doctorate programs in Boston.
Oh, wow.
So when she was done her grad program down in DC, she applied, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I applied, and I got in, and we decided to go. She didn't get in to her schools. And it felt like it was just a happy mistake that it happened.
Yeah.
And I still have the debt, and I'm going to have it for another 5 years. My loans will be paid off in 5 years. But I'm like, dude, I can't take that shit with me. I can't take money with me. I can't. The experiences that I had and the people that I met. I mean, dude, I got to see my drummer from Berklee play in the band live, play percussion as the second drummer in the band live here in Baltimore. And he's like one of my best buds. Did you ever know him, Rob? He was the drummer that played on the gig that we played together at Cask and Flag, and he's a great drummer.
What's his name?
Clint Simmons.
I think I remember. Yeah.
He's such a great drummer. But so like, just like, even in that moment, like, I'm not on that stage, but like cheering my good friend on and seeing him so successful and do the things that he's like always wanted to do was worth my debt. You know what I mean?
Totally,
even
man.
just being in that moment, or like next time I go see Dopapod and see Rob on stage, like my heart will be like the Grinch. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's that stuff. It's just like cheering on your buds and like feeling this like sense of camaraderie in the industry, regardless of if it's music school or you were in the trenches touring in a van, farting it up and stinking it up with your best pals. Like, it's all, and for me, life has been a music school. You know? So.
One of the experience I've had with that recently is one of the first people I jammed with at Berklee, and we actually like took a train out to his parents' house, and I think it was Passover, and they made us latkes, and we jammed in his basement. Was Ben Edkin, the Goose drummer.
Oh, okay.
So I'm having that same experience with them, watching them like get bigger and bigger, and I'm like, I know that guy, Yeah. I know Peter too. Peter Ansbach used to be a lighting tech for Dopapod too, but that's besides the point because we're talking about music school, and I didn't meet him at music school. But another thing too with like meeting people like you're talking about, and even if you don't end up playing with them regularly later in life, I mean, that kind of the biggest reason the biggest thing I got out of it in retrospect was who I met, right?
Totally.
And you don't need 4 years to do that necessarily. So that was another reason I didn't stay the whole time. And it was kind of strategic. Like, I went for 4 semesters, and then my parents actually like couldn't get a loan anymore, So I was like, all right, peace,
There you go. And then you just got to work.
And they actually told me later, like I felt a little guilty about it, like, I let you guys down. And then my mom told me like maybe just a year ago, she's like, oh, we were so relieved. Like they were like, you did exactly what we were hoping you would do, which is you would go there and you would meet people, and then you would go be in a band, because they knew I wanted that, and they're good parents. They weren't expecting me to become a lawyer or anything. So, they were like, you found people and you started a band, and we knew that's what you wanted to do, and then you got out of there, and we could afford it, so it's okay. You know. I think there's sort of hacks, like going to music school, if it's depending on the individual. Like for me, like, I mean, I'm not a what's the word? I don't know, educational person, obviously, because I can't think of the right vocabulary word to describe what I'm talking about. But so I went for a little while, and I mean, I did well when I was there. It's not like I like slacked off. I worked really hard in my classes, but as soon as I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, like, it was time for me to go to road college, and I went and did that. So maybe it's just that kind of time where it's like, I mean, this is sort of like a day and age where things aren't as like cut and dry as they were for like our parents or our grandparents, where like
Sure.
you get out of high school, you go to college, you go for 4 years, you get a job, and you have kids.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of ways to do things. You know.
Yeah. I for one will if any of my kids show that natural ability or just the drive where they they convince me that they have to do it, like of course I would support them to do it. I wouldn't go broke trying, and I wouldn't let them go broke trying.
Yeah.
And I would certainly do everything in my power to show them how to make a living doing it in the way that I would know how at that time. But yeah, I would encourage it for anybody that can make it work in whatever avenue you choose. The people you meet and the inspiration you gain is truly invaluable. It's and just seeing like you said, like there's so many people that I went to school with, and even though we might be doing different things, I see them still out there, still grinding, and it's just like I remember you all those years ago, and like you just were that motherfucker that didn't quit, and it makes you want to be that guy that didn't quit, that'll never quit. And sometimes it's just as simple as that, is seeing someone do it in whatever way makes sense for them, unapologetically over the long term, overcoming all the struggles that we all have, like stuff like that. You got to go there to get it. You got to be with people.
I do think that there's some people who just like there are people who just don't need to go to music school. Like they can do all that stuff, and maybe they don't even know what it means, but they can do it.
Of course.
Right.
Like,
and then you have your Jacob Colliers who are just like crazy, like geniuses, and then you can just do whatever you want regardless.
People come
Taz is like the most incredible guitar player, and he's going to Yale for something that's not even musical,
Yeah.
Or
well, what's interesting too is like for what we're all doing right now in our lives, like Rob's working hard in a rock band, Mike, you got this crazy thing going on with what you're doing. And Mike was the one that told me to do what I'm doing. And I have fledgling channel compared to Mike, but like, I'm just having fun. Like I'm not worried about algorithms. I'm not worried about numbers. I love talking to people on my show. I love getting gear and messing with gear, and none of that has to do with Berklee, but like the love of music is still in me. And it's even propelled more because of my experiences that I've had, whether it be at music school or beforehand or after. But it's fun to see like everybody's paths go different ways.
It's fascinating.
And sometimes we come back to like, look right now, like, what we're doing right now.
The last time I saw you in person was probably like 2009,
Oh, for sure.
We were in a room together,
Yeah, that has to change. We we should do, Rob, we
you
should
coming
start
through
a
the
Jethro
Mid-Atlantic?
Tull.
What'd you say?
Yeah, well, one, yes, you should start a Jethro
we should start a
Tull.
Jethro Tull. This cover
But are you guys
band,
coming through the Mid-Atlantic anytime soon?
I don't remember. Maybe this summer. I know we're doing a bunch of stuff this summer, but I don't remember exactly if there's going to be like anything in Maryland or.
Mark will have to
Certainly in the fall, I'm sure.
Yeah. Let me know.
We'll have to check.
Yeah. I also think like it's amazing how like when I was in music school, you have this. I bet you guys had this too. I feel like this is just a thing where you think you're going to go for 4 years and come out and be a finished musician.
Totally.
Nah. I still have my kid who doesn't know what they're doing,
I still have my whole box of stuff. I feel like I absorbed maybe 10% of it when I was there. Maybe.
Yeah. Or maybe you get all this information, but you're going to spend the next 20 years figuring out how to do something creative and personal with it.
That's exactly right.
I'm still trying to remember how to use the harmonic minor scale, let alone like get out of the pentatonic box. I mean, come on,
it,
man. But I think that ultimately all that stuff, all the ones and zeros that we learn in those moments, and the 10%, Mike, that we retain, like, does that, and you talk about this all the time, but like, what gets you up in the morning and what makes you grab your instrument? Like, make sure you're having fun. First and foremost, have fun. Like, and if you lose sight of that, that's when it sucks. It just gets to the point, dude. I just sold so much of my gear because I feel like I've been like going down this rabbit hole of like all these different overdrives and all this different stuff that I feel like I need and blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, you know what? I don't need all this crap. Like I can get rid of probably 75% of this stuff and be fine. Like, and still it'll sound like me. You know what I mean?
I've noticed
It
this
will.
correlation in myself that the times that I want gear like crazily are when I'm actually unhappy for other reasons. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Filling
you
a
know,
hole, filling a void.
it's a Band-Aid, you know, or because I'm too lazy to actually practice.
Yeah,
You know?
definitely.
So, and then if you actually like have a week where you play diligently every day and like kind of like accomplish some goals, and you're like,
I don't need to buy anything.
I don't need a Boss OD2. Like, what am I talking about? You know,
That's
like,
so
like
true.
you snap out of it, like you went into a fugue state or something, you know, and you're like, oh, where am I? Why am I holding this Boss chorus pedal? You know?
Oh my god, dude. That's so great.
Absolutely
It's
true.
so true.
Yeah.
Man.
It's fun,
But it's
man.
fun. All that stuff is fun. And that's the thing is like
Fun, yeah.
that stuff can also be inspiring too, to make you want to pick up your instrument, and maybe something comes out of your hands that normally wouldn't come out because you hear a sound that's like so weird that you're like, wow, like why does this octave fuzz sound like a ring modulator? Let me write something up here. You know what I mean? Like
starting to use a Strat was one of the most like enlightening musical decisions of my life. It makes you play differently, and it makes you like think about rhythm so much more deeply because everything's so tight sounding.
Yes.
I love that we're not even talking about music school anymore. Of course, we're talking about gear, but
we're past that, right?
You know what I mean? So yeah, totally. Like you can, there's testament to the gear influencing the player too. You know?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But I do kind of think, just because we started talking about like success and music schools talking about success, this is something I think about so much. So I just keep going back to it. But have you guys found that part of getting older is just setting like making your goals as a professional musician just remarkably simple?
Yes.
So like to me, my goal is to make a living holding a guitar.
Yes.
So I teach a lot of lessons and I go play gigs. I play wedding gigs when I'm home.
Yeah.
I'm holding a guitar. I pay my bills. I'm good to go. I'm living the American dream. You know?
Hell yeah.
100% true.
Yeah.
Especially when you have kids, it just becomes laser focused. It's like just the fact that you can just say, I support a family in music with the guitar in my hands is just
incredible.
An incredible thing to say.
Incredible. Yeah.
Totally. Totally with you.
Yeah. So I almost feel like music schools should be a little like, I don't know, maybe when it's a young musician, you're supposed to like light a fire under them and just let them figure out what we're talking about by the time they're 30 or something. But that could be
so much of it. Well, okay, so you bring up a good point. I know I don't want to keep you guys forever, but
that's fine. I'm having fun.
I would say that even people that don't need to go to music school or can't afford it or whatever would thrive there, I believe. But there's so many people that go the other route and just, they're 18, 20 years old and they just go to Nashville and they enter the fire, or whatever it is. Because I think at the end of the day, I think we can all agree, the actual nuts and bolts of the education aside, because you can pick that out wherever. It's about the people, it's about the competition, it's about the environment and being inspired. It's about that pressure and forcing yourself to be forged in that pressure. So you can go to a town like that and just jump in and get your ass kicked for a few years and probably come out with a lot of the same stuff too. If you're
absolutely up for it. Yeah.
I mean, that's the bulk of what people do in all these schools is they're only there for a short while and they either get picked up by somebody and they go on tour, or they're just like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's fair too. I think that just like anything else, at least it's not like high school where you can't do that. I couldn't have said to my parents, I'm good. After I was a sophomore in high school, they would have been like, no, you're not. You know what I mean? But when you're a grown ass man, I mean, I was 28 when I went to Berklee. So it was a very specific decision to do so. It was not taken lightly because I understood the debt that I would be incurring, all that stuff. It was grown ass man decisions.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like, dude, get in, get what you need out of it. And if it's like a very short period of time, if you're like laser focused, like you're saying, I know I'm going to be here for 2 years. Like for me, that's how long I was at Berklee too. And then I
Did you
finished my
finish your degree like accelerated, or did you leave early too?
I finished it online. So I finished my songwriting degree with Berklee online after I
Cool.
left Berklee. So, but I was like, I can only be here for a little while because I'm not going to be able to afford to finish this degree
yeah.
totally. Like, there's no way. So when my wife and I went there, we had an agreement like, this is how much time we're going to spend doing it. And then I'm going to jump out and I'm going to get a job. And whether that's we move back to Baltimore or we're in Boston, and I happened to get a job with Berklee. And again, so happy that I have that family as part of my career, my life, because it is so fun. I get to talk about music all day, every day.
Yeah.
That in and of itself is
Yeah.
also a success. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so it's really just like, dude, you get out of it what you put into it too, though, man. You got it. Like Rob was saying earlier, people take it for granted and they don't put into it anything. They're just like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna just phone in these changes and like whatever. Like you gotta like immerse yourself, dude.
Well, I have an example of that was just so startling. I had 2 roommates when I got there, and one of them is an amazing like bebop drummer, jazz drummer. I don't know what he really kind of free jazz. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but I've kept up on what he makes, and he's incredible. And then our other roommate, the first day of classes, we all woke up and we're like ready to go. We feel like we're at Hogwarts, you know?
Yeah.
And he says, I need a couple of days to like get used to it. I'm not going to go to class today. And then he turned off his alarm and he slept in. That's what I'm talking about. Like It was the first day of classes at like one of the most like unbelievable music playgrounds in the world. And he couldn't even get out of bed. You know, things like that made me be like, bye, I'm going to go to class, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
even harder, you know?
That's in
Yeah.
any type of school anywhere.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just There's
I
always
got
those people.
I had a question that I wanted to ask you guys just because I feel like it'd be interesting and people would want to hear it. Who are people that were in like the top 5%, like what Michael was talking about, or like the people who sort of like who were you guys at school with who people would look at and admire and make them want to go to school too? You know?
I mean, mine, you know, I missed Mateus by a year or two. But you know, all the people that I graduated with that I was close with, they all have pretty, like, they're not famous. They work hard. They're all like, you know, those nameless musicians like in the back of the TV bands. I mean,
Unsung heroes.
They're all the unsung heroes. That's I didn't go with anybody that I can really, you know, put a stamp on that everyone would know. I didn't have that experience.
Yeah. Mark, what about you?
I mean, Esperanza Spalding was there.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
But I didn't know her. But like, you know, another drummer I worked with, Scott Quintana, he was playing with Casey Musgraves for a long time. Who else? Well, Clint was playing with Live. I mean, I got to see him basically play all the songs off Throwing Copper. How cool is that?
It's super cool.
You know, so it's just little things like that, the little triumphs. I'm sure there's a slew. My buddy Brad Shapiro has been touring. He lives in Nashville. He's a killing bass player.
Oh, I know Brad.
Oh God, he's amazing. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
he's
dude.
great. I haven't seen him in forever. That's awesome.
Yeah, so he was in my band for a while before he moved to Nashville, but I was supposed to meet up with him because I went to Nashville to record my latest single with my band back in October. We didn't hook up, but he's working, he's doing this, you know, kind of arena stadium tour stuff with country artists and whatnot, making a living, putting bread on the table, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so it's all that stuff, dude. It's just like you guys were saying. I mean, you know, he brings the low end and he feeds himself and has a roof over his head. So
I remember one time I was in at the Nashville airport, like we were flying to or from some gig, and I ran into a bass player that went to Berklee with me, and he had gotten some big country gig. I can't remember because I just don't have my finger on the pulse of country music as much as I should, but he was like, I was like, what are you up to? And he's like, oh, I'm going to New York City. We're playing the Garden. And I was like, wow, what's that like? And he's like, I was like, is it incredible? And he's like, it's the Garden. And I was like, no, I don't know.
Oh my God. I don't even know how
he
it
was
would
like, it
feel.
sounds like shit and it's really big and it's weird. And I was like, yeah, totally.
I still want to do it.
I'm gonna go
I
play the
know.
exit in, bye. See you, man. So
You know what's weird about that too? Like if you think about like Wolfpack doing that whole Madison Square Garden thing when that happened. Like that was crazy that this unsigned band amassed this thing that they could do that. But like I've heard stories from a ton of different players, like Joey Landreth, for instance, one time told me, he's like, dude, yeah. He's like, one time I was on this country tour and I was stepped up to the front to do my solo and I felt nothing.
Wow.
And I was like, really? And he was like, it's just, I didn't want to be in an arena playing guitar. It felt stale. That I wanted to be doing my thing in a small club for a small amount of people. And, so, and now they are, and it's worked out for the Brothers Landreth, but like, and for Joey's solo career. But you hear about stories like that all the time about like, I don't know how a band like Pearl Jam that I love so much, playing arenas and all that stuff, like how does it sound in their in-ears? Does it sound like ass, or is it like so good? Like
did you there's a great conversation, I don't remember if it's on the Rig Rundown or whatever, where Tom Bugavac's talking about playing with Joe Walsh in arenas. And he's got this whole thing and he's like, man, I got the gig, I had everything dialed the fuck in, and as soon as I get to the arena, I was like, I can't hear anything in the mix at all. And he's like, I can't feel anything, I can't hear anything, and I don't know what's happening. And I remember Joe Walsh, he's warming up in the back room, and I thought he sounded like complete dog shit. It was tinny, there was no low end to it. I don't know what the hell it was going on, but damn it, you put him in the arena and it sounded like the skies were parting, and I learned something really big that day. I learned something really, really big that day. And that you got to have different stuff for different rooms, and those arena players, they know their thing, they know how to dial it in, and it's nothing like what it's like in a club or in a studio. And like it's a super cool thing, because you know how Book talks, it's awesome. But that's got to ring true.
Yeah. I also think a major thing is that with bands getting so big that they play arenas, and then people getting to those arenas and being like, this isn't actually very much fun, is just a testament to that creativity and, money, or, what I mean? All that stuff. They've never had anything to do with one another.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like music does have something to do with it because it's something you can monetize. But the creative aspect of it and doing something that you really mean, like, doesn't necessarily mean like playing the biggest rooms for the most amount of people,
Yeah. Yeah.
Just, I mean, we both love Wayne Krantz, and he played 55 bar.
Right.
Yeah. I've had this conversation with so many people, and I know there's a famous book about it, but I don't know who wrote it. But every time the subject comes up, someone says, "Oh yeah, there's this whole book about it." That different music deserves different rooms, and that you can't just take anything and bring it anywhere.
Is it the David Byrne book, maybe?
Dude, it might be the David Byrne book. Yeah, it is.
This
David
is how
Byrne.
music works, I think.
This is how music works. That's it. Yeah, and so basically, you have to write to the room, or the room dictates what works. There's a reason jazz clubs are the size they are, and those people like playing that type in that room, and there's a reason AC/DC plays open air concerts and you can hear the kick drum from the back and everything in between. Like there's it, that is the book, why music works. Yet that's exactly it.
I'm pretty sure arenas are why power chords exist.
Of course.
Like, because nobody's gonna hear a 13 and a sharp 11 in an arena.
No,
coming out of a Marshall stack.
No, and the gear is all part of it. That's absolutely 100% true.
Yeah.
Dude, I remember seeing. I went to see Weezer and Tenacious D opened up for them. But I was on cloud 9 that night, and that was like when the Line 6 pod had first kind of come out,
Right.
and Weezer, they had 0 amps on stage, and I was like, "What the hell is going on here? This is not right." Like it's like digital model, and this is like probably
common now.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's amazing now, but like, I think that was probably like 2001 ish. It was a while ago. I mean, that technology's gotten light years better, but like, but I remember being like, this is not a rock show. Come on, man. You can't be using digital modeling on a stage like this in an arena.
Is it because it sounded bad though? Like, did it sound noticeably bad, or?
It didn't sound like Maladroit or whatever album was out at that time. You know what I mean? It sounded a little harsh. Like my ears were definitely hearing like the guitar tone was a little harsh. You know how usually like Rivers has that like thick, meaty, sludgy kind of thing?
Oh yeah.
It wasn't like that. It was a little shrilly. And maybe it was because they just started using those rigs and they weren't used to it yet. I don't know. But I remember I felt like an old man, like get off my lawn. I was like, where are the Marshall Sacks and the blah blah blah? Like but now it's funny because I'm like, I would totally, if somebody was like, I'm using a Kemper, it sounds amazing, or an XFX, I'd be like, yeah, of course. I mean, like,
I would agree. I'd be like, yeah, that does sound amazing, but I would not have the patience to also use that rig personally.
Yeah.
I'm not good. Give me a Fender Vibrolux,
But what if somebody like you had a really like super nerdy tech that like knew all that stuff and got it to sound, modeled your Vibrolux and like sounded exactly like it. It was like never would burn out. Every night would sound the same. Would you even care at that moment?
I'd give it a shot. Totally. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, I'm still an amp guy too. Trust me. Like I love my T-Rock, but like, for traveling purposes, I can see and like not knocking tubes around and stuff, That makes a lot of sense. So
yeah,
I can tell you that I really don't spend or don't like that. Don't have a lot of those options and don't spend time trying to figure that stuff out. But what I do like is playing other people's rigs that do have that stuff figured out, and not making a single decision and just like, what are you playing with? Like, dude, I just played with Daniel Donato. He came in, he plugged me in direct through it didn't even just through a Fender Mustang, but not off stage, like, and just had that coming straight out the monitors at me with no pedals, nothing, and gave me a B bender, which I've never played before. And that is something that I would never. I mean, at first I thought he was like kind of screwing with me, but then I'll be goddamn if it didn't sound pretty good.
Yeah.
It's nothing like having an amp on stage, but I get it. He wasn't playing through one of those, but he had one. Just in case he got a solid state thing in case everything goes wrong.
He's awesome. He's one of those guys who I would say didn't need to go to music school.
No, well, he did that Nashville head cutting thing where he
just played at Robert's Western World every day for like 6 years.
And before they would let him in, he was just like the kid on the street that his dad would be out there with him, so he didn't get robbed. Just playing with his guitar case open, asking people to let him sit in and have gigs. And if anybody out there that knows Nashville, if you get the Roberts Western World gig with Kelly's Hero, I mean, you're basically got your whole career after that.
Yeah.
Who did I just see there? I was in Nashville with a day off, and I went there, and there was another young kid just like playing the greatest.
Luke McQuarrie.
Yep, that was him.
Luke is a bad man.
That was great, man.
But yeah, like Luke took Daniel's gig, and before Daniel, you had Brent Mason, you had Johnny Hyland,
JD Simo,
JD Simo. You got Guthrie Trapp. I mean, you get that gig. I mean, you got any gig you want. In that game,
that gig would definitely be devil's advocate to like, you don't need music school, but we also don't all live in Nashville. We're not all freaks. Like some of us have to work really, really hard. I mean, not saying that they don't have to work hard. They all have to work hard, but some of us need guidance, I guess is what I mean to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of it. I'm sorry, I'm just bringing it back to this music school thing because
No. That's
people are talking about it in the chat. Like, I thought we were talking about music school.
Yeah.
Like,
But,
sorry, we're musicians, or we're like a goldfish. It's like 3
I know,
seconds.
it's
Like,
the gear took over.
I had an experience when I was really young and just starting to play guitar where I had taken like some guitar class in like music school. It's just where it's like music class, and for a couple weeks you try a different instrument, you know. And then the music teacher had a bunch of nylon string guitars lying around, and he showed us how to play Wipeout. You know, bam, 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 bam. I didn't know chords or anything. He just showed us like this a couple simple little things, and I played it all. I would play Wipeout for like 6 hours and watch Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego after school. You know?
Yes.
And but then so I was like, I'm getting pretty good at this guitar thing, you know? Like I thought I was kind of like good, you know? And because my dad's a guitar player, so we had guitars lying around. And so then we went to like a Christmas party at my grandma's house, and him and my uncle, they would always sit in the other room with acoustic guitars and play like folk songs. And I was like, I'm going to play too. I think I'd gotten my first electric guitar for Christmas by then too. And I went to play with them, and I didn't know what key they were in because I didn't know what a key was.
Right.
And I, you know, and to my dad's credit, he was, to help me, they only played songs in G, and he said I could play any note on the top 2 strings on the frets that had dots on them.
There you
Like
go.
the 3rd fret, the 5th fret, and the 7th fret. And that was great. But I knew from that night, I was like, I'm not going to be able to figure this out by myself. I know it.
Yeah.
You know?
I very much felt that way too.
So I felt that same way by going to music school. It was a much bigger version of the same thing. So it's, you know, it's a personal decision. And I knew for myself, like, there's no way I'm going to get where I want to get with my own sheer brain or willpower. I don't have the work ethic. I don't think I can make sense of these things without somebody in person, like adjusting things to the way that my brain will understand them. Do you know what I mean? Because we all know this with one-on-one students. You got to explain things a little bit differently for everybody.
yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I just knew I wasn't going to get where I wanted to get unless I did that, you know?
And I think just in general, whether it's music or otherwise, you'll never push yourself alone the way you will in a group. You know, whether it's athletics or any type of competitive thing. Competition is good. You know, it's great. You know, and cheer for the other people, but also like really try to be the best you that you can be. You know, that's just it's great advice.
Yeah.
And so
a lot of that too is putting yourself in a situation where you can thrive. Like I think that's a lot of the of being the best you that you can be is like, trying your best and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, but also ultimately finding a situation where you can be, where all your strengths can really shine too, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
I, for one, am glad that I went, and I would encourage my kids to go if they had that burn to do it. And again, I wouldn't go broke doing it. I wouldn't let them go broke doing it, but I don't see, I mean, it was the best thing ever for me. I mean, it totally changed the trajectory of my life in ways that I couldn't have comprehended. But I mean, that was the first real pivotal moment where I, broke from the path of perhaps what my parents wanted me to do or what I had, thought about before. And I really bet all on me and just went all in on me and jumped into the fire. And even though the whole world changed, that the music industry changed in the time period since then, that first choice to go to music school and say, no, I'm going to be a musician for my life, that was the fork in the road.
Yeah.
For me, I think it took that. And so I'm grateful that I did it.
Yeah.
I am too. Like, and Plexico was asking about, did we all three go to music school? And Rob actually did. So I sitting here right now, had I not gone to Berklee, I wouldn't know Rob.
Yeah.
Point blank. And I might not even know you, Michael. I mean, like I when I
Never
came
know.
back here, I mean, it's like the butterfly effect, dude. Who knows where my life would have spun off to? I mean, we were talking about moving to LA before we went to
Right.
Boston. We were talking about going to Nashville. Like we were talking about diverting and not doing the Berklee thing. But for me, and like I said earlier, dude, like it is not for everyone. It was a very, very intentional thing that I decided to go to Berklee. I had many sleepless nights thinking, should we do this? I don't want to take on debt. This isn't smart. At some point, we want to start a family. And thank God for amazing partners in our lives too.
Yeah.
So glad you said that.
Because my wife has been a rock through all this stuff. And it's got to be hard to be married to a musician. Let's be real about that.
Impossible.
Yeah.
So, and so it's for me, like going to Boston was just point blank great because of all the wonderful people that I've met along the way. The guitar playing and stuff. I'm still not the guitar player I think I know I can be.
Ain't that the truth?
And I'm not the greatest guitar player. I get the job done. But like I can't put a price on the relationships and the experiences that I've gained from it.
Don't you also like, I feel like you're supposed to feel that way all the time. Like you want to feel that way. After a while, you welcome that feeling of like being like, I'm not the guitar player that I strive to be. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, I do, and I don't, in the sense that like I just don't actually practice that much like I used to. You know what I mean? And I remember how my chops used to be. And they're not there anymore, but they could be.
Yeah.
It's like that scene from Bittersweet Motel or Bittersweet Hotel when like, do you guys practice? And we're like, we don't have to practice anymore.
You don't have to practice anymore.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, totally.
Well, should we wrap it up, gentlemen? It's been an hour and 40 minutes here.
Yeah, sure, man.
All
dude,
right,
thanks for this. And dude, what a surprise seeing you, Rob. It's great to see your face, man.
Thanks for letting me bug you guys. I appreciate the invite, Michael. It's nice to finally meet you. Mark, it's always great to see you, man. I hope we get to be in the same room again soon.
Yeah, dude, for sure, man. I'm actually coming up to I'm flying up in July I won't be in Vermont. I'm going to my buddy lives in Saratoga Springs. I think I told you one of my best friends lives there.
Oh yeah.
We were going to try to
city to Burlington,
Yeah, I mean it's funny because we looked at all the shows at SPAC and like Tedeschi Trucks is playing there and all these great bands and none of them I could go to. Like none of the like bands like the Dead are playing there and I'm just like, man, I can't go to any of these, so we're just gonna hang. But I'm
shoot, hit me up, and if I'm around while you're around, maybe we could hang, man. It would be great to see you.
Yeah, totally.
Love it. And if, Rob, if you come through the Mid-Atlantic area anywhere, Mark and I will make a point, try to come find you.
I would love that. I'll let you guys know. I tend to not have. I need to look at our little calendar to know what we're doing. I never have it. I'm not a steel trap with it,
No worries. We can look it up. Yeah. But no, I've been wanting to connect for a while. So thank you for jumping on and surprising Mark and adding a great deal to the conversation. So Mark, thank you so much, man. Always a pleasure. Mods, thank you so much for dropping the links in the chat. Please go and subscribe to both their channels. And thank you all so much for tuning in this Tuesday. Mods, again, thank you so much for all you do, keeping this a safe, friendly place. Vandy, know that we love you. We've all been thinking about you. And you guys hang tight for a second. You guys have a good one. We'll see you real soon. And that'll be that. Cheers.